When my dad passed away, I thought nothing worse could ever happen to me. But I was wrong, so wrong. The very next day, my uncle walked into the office, took the keys to my dad's $70 million company, looked straight into my eyes and said, "You're just a child. Stay out of this." For a moment, I believed him. I thought maybe he was right. But exactly 24 hours later, the lawyer called me and said the words that froze my uncle's smile and turned his face white as chalk. That day, everything changed, because the papers said something no one expected. "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached." My name is Madison Carter, and I never thought life could twist like this. When my dad died, it felt like the earth had been pulled from under my feet. He wasn't just my father. He was my mentor, my protector, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, how to swim, how to face the world with confidence. He built Carter Enterprises from scratch, starting with a small garage and a single idea. Over 30 years, he turned it into one of the biggest companies in the state. People admired him. Some even feared him because he was smart, sharp, and never backed down from a challenge. But he had a soft side too, the side only I and Mom knew. That side loved Sunday breakfasts, fishing trips, and laughing until we cried over silly things. When the heart attack came, it was so sudden that we didn't even have time to say goodbye. One moment he was fine, talking about next quarter's plans. The next, he was gone. I was 22, still in college, still figuring out life. His death didn't just leave a hole in our hearts. It left a huge question mark over everything he had built. I remember the day after the funeral like it happened 5 minutes ago. Black cars lined the street. People in suits came and went. The office smelled of flowers and perfume, the kind that lingers long after people leave. That's when Uncle Richard arrived. He walked in like he owned the place. He had always been around, of course, Dad's younger brother, charming, funny at family dinners, but never close to us. He never cared about birthdays or holidays. He was too busy with his own life. But now, suddenly, he was everywhere. He called the board members, shook hands with managers, patted employees on the back. "We will get through this," he said in his smooth, confident voice. "The company is in good hands." At first, I thought maybe he was stepping up for Dad, helping us keep things stable. But then, in front of everyone, he turned to me and said, "Madison, you're still a child. These things are too big for you. Let the grown-ups handle it." People laughed politely. Some looked uncomfortable. Me, I froze. Because for a second, I thought maybe he was right. I didn't know the first thing about running a company. I had never even attended a board meeting. And the way everyone looked at me, it was like they agreed with him. But then came the lawyer's call. It was late evening. I was sitting in Dad's old office chair, staring at the family photo on the desk. The phone rang. "Madison," said Mr. Thompson, Dad's lawyer, "I need you to come by first thing in the morning. There's something important in your father's will you should see." The next morning, my uncle was already in the office when I arrived. He was laughing with the CFO, sipping coffee like he had lived there all his life. The lawyer walked in carrying a folder thick with papers. Everyone gathered around. My uncle leaned back in his chair, smirking, like he already knew what was inside. But the moment the lawyer read the words, his smirk vanished. "According to Mr. Carter's will," Mr. Thompson said clearly, "effective immediately, Madison Carter will inherit controlling interest in Carter Enterprises and will assume the role of Chief Executive Officer." The room went silent. My uncle's face turned white. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. People glanced at each other. Some looked shocked, others smiled like they had been waiting for this. Me, I couldn't breathe. "CEO, me." Uncle Richard tried to speak. "There must be some mistake," he said finally, his voice shaking. "She's just a kid, she can't." "The decision is final," the lawyer interrupted. "Mr. Carter made sure of it." For a moment, no one moved. Then Uncle Richard stood up so fast his chair nearly fell over. He stormed out of the room without another word. That was the moment I realized my life had just changed forever. I wish I could tell you I felt powerful, like a queen taking her throne. But the truth, I was terrified. I didn't know how to run a company. I didn't even know what half the departments did. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Dad believed in you. That's why he chose you." And that was the moment I decided I would not let him down. Before I continue, if you're still watching, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps me a lot to share more of this story with you. And don't forget, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far my story travels. Because trust me, things were only going to get crazier from here. The moment the lawyer closed that folder, the room turned into a storm of whispers. People looked at me like I had suddenly grown 10 feet tall. My Uncle Richard was gone, but I could still feel his anger hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. I sat there frozen, my hands gripping the edge of the table so tight my knuckles turned white. CEO? Me? It didn't even feel real. Just yesterday, I was a college kid worrying about exams. Now I was in charge of a $70 million company. My father must have seen something in me I couldn't see in myself. The lawyer leaned toward me. "Madison," he said softly so only I could hear, "there will be a board meeting tomorrow morning. They will expect you to speak as the new CEO." Speak in front of all those people? My heart started pounding. I wanted to say no, to run away, to tell everyone they had the wrong person. But then I remembered Dad. He trusted me with this. He believed I could handle it. And maybe, just maybe, I could. That night, I barely slept. I sat in Dad's old office surrounded by his books and files, trying to imagine what he would do if he were here. I found a note in his handwriting tucked inside a folder. It just said, "Never let fear decide your future." I held on to those words like a lifeline. The next morning, the boardroom was packed. Men in suits, women in sharp dresses, laptops open, coffee cups steaming. Uncle Richard was there too, sitting at the far end, his face like stone. I could feel his eyes burning into me as I walked in. My hands were shaking, but I lifted my chin. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Some people nodded politely, others just stared. The chairman, Mr. Lewis, cleared his throat. "Madison," he said, "as the new CEO, perhaps you'd like to share your vision for the company." My vision? I didn't even have one yet, but I took a deep breath. "I know I'm young," I began, "and I know some of you probably think I can't handle this, but my father believed in me. He built this company on hard work, honesty, and courage. I plan to do the same. I'm here to learn, to listen, and to make sure Carter Enterprises grows even stronger." The room was silent for a moment. Then someone clapped. It was Mrs. Grant, head of marketing. Others joined in slowly. Not everyone clapped. Uncle Richard didn't move, but it was enough. After the meeting, people came up to me. Some offered advice, others just wanted to shake my hand. But Uncle Richard, he walked straight past me without a word. I could tell this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Later that day, I overheard him in the hallway talking to someone on the phone. "She won't last a month," he said. "She has no idea how this place works. We'll take control back soon enough." I pretended not to hear, but inside a fire lit up. He thought I couldn't handle it. Fine, I'd prove him wrong. The next few weeks were chaos. Meetings, reports, decisions. Half the time I didn't even understand the terms people used. EBITDA, ROI, supply chain metrics. It was like learning a new language overnight. But every evening I stayed late, reading Dad's notes, studying old files, asking questions from anyone who would answer. Slowly, pieces started fitting together. One evening, while going through financial reports, I noticed something strange. A payment to a company I had never heard of, huge sums every month with no clear explanation. I asked the finance team about it. They looked nervous and said Uncle Richard had approved it. That night, I couldn't sleep. My gut told me something was wrong. Why was money leaving the company to a name that didn't even appear in official vendor lists? I started digging quietly, not telling anyone. Meanwhile, Uncle Richard started getting desperate. He called emergency meetings, criticized my decisions in front of others, tried to make me look inexperienced. Once he even laughed in front of the board, saying, "She probably still thinks profit margins are a type of shopping discount." People chuckled awkwardly, but I could see some of them starting to doubt me. I needed to act fast. One day, while checking old emails on Dad's laptop, I found something, an unsigned contract between Carter Enterprises and that same mysterious company. At the bottom was a note in Dad's handwriting, "Do not approve." Suspicious terms. Investigate further. My heart pounded. Dad had known something was wrong, and now I was sure Uncle Richard was behind it. The next morning, I confronted the finance head privately. "Tell me everything about these payments," I said firmly. At first, he hesitated. Then he sighed. "Your uncle insisted we process them," he admitted. "Said it was for a secret project your father approved. We didn't question him." A secret project? My father? No way, Dad never kept financial secrets. I realized Uncle Richard wasn't just trying to take the company. He was bleeding it from the inside. The weight of it hit me hard. This wasn't just about me proving myself anymore. This was about saving my father's company from his own brother. I decided to gather evidence quietly before making any move. If I confronted him too soon, he could destroy records, twist the story, make me look like the villain. I needed to be smart. Over the next week, I collected documents, emails, payment records, everything pointing to those fake transactions. Each piece felt like a puzzle coming together, and the picture it painted was ugly. Uncle Richard had been siphoning money for months, maybe years. I wanted to scream, to tell the board right away. But I remembered Dad's words, "Never let fear decide your future." Fear made people reckless. I needed a plan. Meanwhile, Uncle Richard acted like he owned the place. He smiled in meetings, gave long speeches about family legacy, even suggested publicly that maybe the board should reconsider leadership for the good of the company. Some people actually nodded. My stomach twisted every time I saw it. But I kept my calm, because deep down I knew something he didn't. His time was running out. I'll never forget the night I finally had enough proof. I sat in Dad's old chair, files spread out in front of me, my hands shaking, not with fear this time, but with determination. Tomorrow, at the quarterly board meeting, I would lay everything on the table. It was risky. If things went wrong, if people didn't believe me, I could lose everything. My position, my father's legacy, even my future. But if I stayed silent, Uncle Richard would destroy the company piece by piece. That night before going home, I stood in the empty boardroom staring at the big leather chair at the head of the table, the CEO's chair. My father's chair. Now my chair. "Dad," I whispered, "I hope I'm doing the right thing." The next morning, the meeting room was packed again. Uncle Richard sat across from me, smiling like a wolf. He thought today was his day, that he would finally push me out. But this time, I was ready. Before the meeting started, I looked straight at the camera on the live stream. "If you're watching this," I said softly, "hit the like button and subscribe. This is where things get real. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to see how far my father's story reaches." Because today, everything was about to change. The boardroom felt like a battlefield that morning. Everyone was there, board members, department heads, even some senior managers who normally didn't attend. The air was thick with tension, like people knew something big was about to happen. Uncle Richard sat near the head of the table, leaning back in his chair, hands folded, wearing that same smug smile he always had when he thought he was winning. I walked in with a folder under my arm. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed calm. I had spent the whole night preparing. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about saving Dad's company, about protecting everything he had built. "Good morning, Mr. Lewis," the chairman said. He looked tired, like he sensed trouble coming. "Let's begin." Before anyone else could speak, Uncle Richard cleared his throat. "Before we start," he said smoothly, "I'd like to raise a concern. With all due respect to Madison, I believe the company needs experienced leadership. We are facing major challenges, economic uncertainty, rising competition, and we cannot afford rookie mistakes." Some heads nodded. My stomach twisted, but I stayed quiet, let him talk. Richard continued, "Madison is young. She lacks experience. We all respected my brother, God rest his soul, but we have to think about the future of Carter Enterprises. I propose the board consider appointing an interim CEO, someone with proven expertise, until Madison is ready." He said it like he cared, like he was the responsible one. I wanted to laugh. Mr. Lewis looked at me. "Madison, do you want to respond?" "Yes," I said, standing up slowly. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. I agree with my uncle on one thing. The company needs strong leadership, which is why we need to talk about the real problem here. I opened the folder and pulled out the documents. Over the last 6 months, I said, Carter Enterprises has paid over $4 million to a company called Redstone Consulting. A company with no office, no website, no employees, because it doesn't exist. The room went silent. These payments, I continued, holding up the papers, were approved by my uncle, Richard Carter, without board knowledge or my father's approval. In fact, my father wrote a note before he died, right here, saying these terms were suspicious and should be investigated. I passed the note around. Board members leaned forward, reading it carefully. Richard's face was turning red. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "Lies and misunderstandings." I cut him off. "I have bank records, emails, contracts, all signed by you." I handed copies to the chairman. "Redstone Consulting is just a shell company. Money from Carter Enterprises was funneled there and then transferred to private accounts connected to you." Gasps filled the room. Richard slammed his hand on the table. "This is a setup," he shouted. "She's twisting things." "Enough," Mr. Lewis said sharply. He was reading the documents, his face growing darker by the second. "These signatures are yours, Richard. These dates match your approvals. Do you deny this?" Richard's mouth opened, then closed. He looked like a man drowning. I didn't stop. "This company belonged to my father," I said, my voice rising. "He trusted the people in this room. He trusted you, Uncle Richard, and while we were grieving his death, you were stealing from his legacy." Some board members were shaking their heads in disbelief. Others looked furious. Mrs. Grant from marketing said loudly, "I knew something was wrong when budgets were suddenly cut for no reason." Richard tried to speak again, but this time no one listened. I pulled out one last document. "This," I said, "is a letter from our legal team confirming that Redstone Consulting is under investigation for fraud. If the board agrees, we will cooperate fully with law enforcement to recover the stolen funds." That was the moment the room exploded. People started talking over each other. Some demanded Richard resign immediately. Others asked how deep the fraud went. Richard himself stood up, face pale, shouting that it was all lies, but no one believed him anymore. Finally, Mr. Lewis banged his gavel. "Enough! We will take a formal vote." The vote was quick. 11-1 in favor of removing Richard Carter from all company positions, effective immediately. Richard stared at me across the table. His eyes were full of hatred. "You think you've won," he hissed. "This isn't over." But it was over. Security escorted him out as cameras from the hallway clicked like crazy. For the first time since Dad died, I felt like I could breathe. But the victory didn't feel sweet. Not yet, because I knew the investigation would take months. I knew employees were shaken. I knew the company's reputation had taken a hit. That afternoon, I called an all-hands meeting with every employee. Hundreds of people filled the auditorium. Some looked scared, others looked angry. I stepped onto the stage. "I know the last few weeks have been chaotic," I began. "I know there are rumors, questions, doubts, but I want you to hear this directly from me. Carter Enterprises is stronger than one man's greed. My father built this company on integrity. That hasn't changed." People listened silently. "Somebody tried to break that trust," I continued. "But today, we took the first step to make things right. There will be a full investigation. There will be accountability, and together we will rebuild what was damaged." Someone started clapping, then another. Soon the whole room was on its feet. I almost cried right there. That evening, I walked through the office halls alone. Everything felt different. People smiled at me now. Some stopped to say thank you. But inside, I was exhausted. The fight had just begun. Because taking down Richard didn't solve everything. There were contracts to fix, investors to calm, employees to reassure. And somewhere deep inside, I still felt like that same 22-year-old girl who had no idea what EBITDA even meant. I went to Dad's office, my office now, and sat in his chair. For a long time, I just stared at the city lights outside the window. "Dad," I whispered, "I hope you're watching. I hope I made you proud today." My phone buzzed. It was a message from the lawyer. "Law enforcement will contact you tomorrow regarding the fraud case. Be ready for questions." Tomorrow, another battle. But tonight, for the first time, I felt like maybe I could do this. Maybe Dad was right about me after all. Before leaving, I turned on the camera one last time. "If you're still watching," I said softly, "hit like and subscribe so I can keep sharing this journey. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Tonight was a big step, but it's only the beginning." Because the truth, the hardest part was still ahead. The night after Richard was thrown out felt like a strange dream. People kept calling me, reporters, board members, even distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Some congratulated me, others wanted to know the inside story. But inside, I felt empty. I had spent so many sleepless nights gathering evidence, planning that boardroom moment, imagining how it would feel when Richard was finally exposed. I thought victory would taste sweet. Instead, it tasted like exhaustion. I sat in my office late that night, lights dim, staring at Dad's photo on the wall. "We did it, Dad," I whispered, "but I don't know what comes next." The next morning, the real storm hit. News channels ran headlines. "CEO's uncle accused of massive fraud." Social media exploded with posts. Some praised me for standing up, others questioned how such fraud had gone unnoticed for so long. Investors started calling, worried about their money. That's when the lawyers arrived. 3 of them carrying thick files, serious faces. "Madison," one said, "law enforcement wants full cooperation. We'll need access to all company records, financial data, everything related to Redstone Consulting." I nodded, "Take whatever you need." But as they spoke, I realized this investigation wouldn't be easy. Richard wasn't just my uncle, he was a Carter. He had friends, connections, people who might defend him. The company's reputation was at stake. One wrong move, and Carter Enterprises could lose clients, investors, even employees. I felt the weight of it pressing down on me. That afternoon, the police arrived to collect documents. Cameras flashed outside the building. Employees watched nervously as boxes of files were carried out. I could almost hear their thoughts. What else will they find? Meanwhile, I had to keep the company running. Deals to close, products to launch, salaries to pay. Every day felt like running 2 marathons at once, one to save the company's future, another to uncover its past. One evening, Mrs. Grant from marketing came to my office. "You're doing well, Madison," she said kindly, "but the employees are scared. They need to hear from you." She was right. People needed reassurance. So I scheduled a town hall meeting. Hundreds of employees gathered in the auditorium again. I stood on the stage, lights bright on my face, heart pounding. "I know things look messy right now," I began. "I know some of you are worried about your jobs, your future, but I promise you this, Carter Enterprises is not falling apart. We are rebuilding. We are cleaning up what was broken, and we will come out stronger." People listened, some even smiled. "But I can't do it alone," I continued. "I need all of you with me. My father built this company with trust. I want to build it with teamwork." Applause erupted. For the first time since Dad's death, I felt like maybe people truly believed in me. But the battles kept coming. A week later, investigators discovered offshore accounts linked to Richard, millions of dollars missing. The news hit headlines again. Richard went on TV, claiming innocence, blaming me for family betrayal. He even said Dad had promised him control of the company, not me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I focused on work. We launched a new product line Dad had planned before he died. I met investors, assured clients, talked to employees. Slowly, business numbers started stabilizing. But inside, I was struggling. Sleepless nights, endless meetings, constant pressure. It was eating me alive. Sometimes I locked my office door just to cry where no one could see. One night, while looking through Dad's old notebooks, I found something surprising. Pages filled with his thoughts, not about business, but about life. Quotes, advice, even little sketches. One page said, "Legacy isn't about money. It's about people who believe in you when you're gone." I read that line over and over. Maybe Dad chose me not because I was ready, but because he knew I would fight for people, not just profits. Meanwhile, Richard's trial date was announced. Prosecutors charged him with fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. It felt surreal watching my own uncle in handcuffs on TV. Part of me felt angry, part of me felt sad. Mom called me that night. "He's still your uncle," she said softly. "Family doesn't stop being family even when they hurt you." I didn't know what to say. Weeks passed. I threw myself into work. We hired new managers, strengthened financial controls, rebuilt investor trust. Slowly, Carter Enterprises started shining again. But then another problem hit. A competitor company spread rumors that Carter Enterprises was unstable after the scandal. We lost 2 major clients in 1 week. Stocks dropped. The board panicked. One evening, Mr. Lewis came to my office. "Madison," he said, "some board members are nervous. They think the company needs a more experienced CEO to handle these challenges." It felt like a punch in the stomach. After everything I had done, exposing Richard, saving the company, they still doubted me. That night I walked through the empty halls of Carter Enterprises. Lights off, offices silent. I ended up in Dad's office again. I sat in his chair, staring at the city lights. "Maybe they're right," I whispered. "Maybe I'm not ready." But then I remembered the employees clapping at the town hall, the investors who thanked me for saving their money, the letters from customers who loved our new products. No, I couldn't quit, not now. The next morning, I called another board meeting. This time, I came prepared with numbers. Sales growth after the new product launch, cost savings from reforms I introduced, investor confidence reports. When I finished, the room was silent. Finally, Mr. Lewis spoke. "The numbers speak for themselves. Madison stays as CEO." Relief washed over me. But I knew challenges weren't over. Richard's trial was approaching. Reporters called every day. Some employees still feared layoffs. Competitors tried to poach our clients. One evening, Mrs. Grant smiled at me and said, "You know, Madison, for someone who was called just a child, you're handling this better than most adults would." I laughed for the first time in weeks. That night, I recorded another video message. "If you're still watching," I said, "hit like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments where you're from, because this journey isn't over yet. The fight for my father's legacy is just getting started." And I meant every word. Because deep down, I knew the real test was still to come. The trial that would decide not just Richard's fate, but the future of Carter Enterprises itself. The day Richard's trial began, the whole city seemed to be watching. News vans parked outside the courthouse. Reporters crowded the steps, microphones waving like weapons. Cameras flashed every time someone walked in or out. It felt like the whole world was waiting to see if the Carter family would survive its own scandal. I sat in the front row of the courtroom, heart pounding. Lawyers shuffled papers, judges whispered, jurors looked serious. Richard walked in wearing a dark suit, looking thinner, older. He didn't glance at me, but I could feel his anger across the room like heat from a fire. The prosecutor stood up first. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "this case is about betrayal, about a man who stole millions from his own family's company while pretending to protect it." She laid out everything: fake companies, secret accounts, forged contracts. Each word felt like a hammer striking the table. Then Richard's lawyer spoke. He tried to paint me as a spoiled kid, too young to understand business, someone twisting facts for revenge. I almost laughed. But the evidence was too strong. Emails with Richard's signature, bank transfers traced to him, witnesses from the finance department. Day by day, the case built like a storm cloud ready to burst. Meanwhile, I still had a company to run. Every morning before court, I checked sales numbers, answered investor emails, signed contracts. At night after court, I met with managers, planned new projects, solved problems. It felt like living 2 lives at once, CEO by day, witness by morning, survivor all the time. One evening after court, I walked into the office lobby and found employees waiting for me. "We just wanted to say we're with you," one said. Others nodded. That small moment kept me going. The trial lasted 3 long weeks. Reporters called it the Carter scandal. Social media turned it into a drama series, #Team Madison versus Team Richard. Some strangers supported him, claiming he was framed. Others called me a hero for standing up. But I didn't feel like a hero. Every time Richard's lawyer mentioned my father, my chest tightened. Dad had loved his brother once. He never imagined things ending like this. Finally, the last day came, closing arguments. The prosecutor's voice rang through the courtroom. Richard Carter stole from his own family. He betrayed his brother's trust, his company's trust, and his employees' trust. He thought no one would stop him. Today, you can prove him wrong. The jury left to decide. Hours crawled by like days. I sat frozen, staring at the floor, praying Dad could see this moment. Finally, the jury returned. The foreman stood. "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Richard's face went pale, then red, then blank. The judge announced sentencing for the following month. As Richard was led away, he finally looked at me. His eyes were full of something I couldn't read. Anger, regret, maybe both. Outside the courthouse, cameras surrounded me. "Madison, how do you feel?" reporters shouted. I took a deep breath. "This wasn't about revenge," I said. "It was about protecting my father's legacy and doing what was right for the company. Today, justice was served." The next day, Carter Enterprises stock jumped 10%. Investors sent congratulatory messages. Employees threw a small party in the cafeteria. For the first time since Dad died, the company felt alive again. But I knew rebuilding wasn't just about numbers. It was about trust. I spent the next weeks meeting employees at every level: factory workers, sales teams, office staff. I listened to their concerns, their ideas. Some told me how scared they had been during the scandal, how rumors of layoffs kept them awake at night. "We're not just surviving," I told them. "We're moving forward together." We launched a new scholarship program in Dad's name. We started community projects he had always dreamed about. Slowly, Carter Enterprises became more than just a company again. It became a family. Meanwhile, the board grew more confident in me. Mr. Lewis even joked one day, "Madison, you've handled more crises in 1 year than most CEOs handle in 10. I smiled, but inside I knew the scars would last a long time. The day Richard was sentenced to 10 years in prison, I felt nothing. No joy, no triumph, just emptiness. Because no matter what he had done, he was still family. Mom cried when she heard. "He was your father's brother," she whispered. "I know," I said softly, "but he made his choices." That night, I walked through Dad's office again. His chair, his books, his photos, they all felt different now, like the storm had finally passed. But another challenge waited. Our biggest competitor launched an aggressive campaign to steal our clients, using the scandal as their weapon. Ads, articles, even fake rumors about Carter Enterprises going bankrupt. Some clients believed them. Contracts were at risk. One evening, I called an emergency meeting with the marketing team. "We're not hiding anymore," I told them. "We tell our story, the truth, how we survived, how we're growing, how we're stronger now than ever." We launched a campaign called Carter Rising. Videos of employees talking about resilience, articles about new products, new hires, new dreams. Slowly, the narrative changed. People started seeing us not as victims of scandal, but as fighters who came back stronger. One night, scrolling through comments online, I saw messages from strangers across the world. "Madison, you inspire us. I wish my boss cared like you do. Watching from Brazil, keep going." It made me smile. I recorded another video. If you're still watching, hit like, subscribe, and tell me your city in the comments. Because this story started with pain, but it's turning into something bigger. A story about fighting back, about family, about never giving up. But deep down, I knew one last chapter was waiting. Because running a company isn't just about surviving scandals or winning trials. It's about building a future no one can shake. And that future was calling. After Richard went to prison and the trial ended, people thought my life would finally slow down. They thought everything was over, that I could sit back and enjoy running Carter Enterprises without any more chaos. But the truth was, the real work was just beginning. My father's dream wasn't just about keeping the company alive. He wanted it to grow, to reach places he had never been able to reach while he was alive. And now, that responsibility sat on my shoulders. I remember one late night sitting in Dad's old office. The building was empty, lights low, the city glowing outside the window. I looked at his photo on the desk, him smiling like he always did, and I whispered, "Dad, we survived. But now we have to build something even bigger." That was the night I made a promise, to him, to myself, to every employee depending on me, that Carter Enterprises would not only recover but become stronger than ever before. The next morning, I called a meeting with the executive team. "We're done reacting," I told them. "It's time to lead." I laid out a bold plan: new products, global expansion, hearing top talent, and rebuilding our reputation from the ground up. Some board members looked nervous, but I could see excitement in their eyes too. We started small. A new marketing campaign showing our employees, our factories, our real story, not polished ads, but real people building real products. Customers loved it. Sales began climbing again. Then came the big leap: expansion into Europe and Asia. It was risky, expensive, and complicated. Some advisors said we should wait, play it safe. But I knew waiting meant falling behind. So we moved fast. We opened our first overseas office in London, then another in Singapore. I traveled constantly, meeting clients, learning cultures, shaking hands with people who didn't even know about the Carter scandal because all they cared about was the future. Meanwhile, back home, the company culture began to change. We launched mentorship programs, employee wellness plans, leadership training. I wanted every person at Carter Enterprises to feel like they weren't just workers. They were part of a family building something important. One day, walking through the factory floor, I stopped to talk to a line worker named Mark. He told me he'd been with the company for 20 years but never felt this much hope before. "Feels like the old days," he said, "back when your dad was here." That hit me hard, because that was exactly what I wanted, to bring back not just profits but the heart of the company. Of course, challenges kept coming. Our competitors weren't happy watching us rise again. They launched cheaper products, spread rumors, tried to poach our top talent. But every time they attacked, we came back stronger. We improved quality, invested in research, treated our people better so they wouldn't leave. Then came an opportunity I never expected. A tech startup approached us with a revolutionary idea that could change our entire industry. They didn't trust big corporations, but they trusted me because of how openly we rebuilt after the scandal. We partnered with them, combining their innovation with our resources. Within a year, we launched a product line that stunned the market. Suddenly, Carter Enterprises wasn't just recovering, we were leading. But success brought new pressures. Investors demanded faster growth. Media called me the youngest CEO to turn a company around. And employees looked at me like I had all the answers. Some nights I lay awake wondering if I was in over my head. I was only 24. Should I even be running a $70 million empire? One evening, I visited Mom. She made tea like she always did and listened quietly as I told her everything: the pressure, the fear, the constant decisions. When I finally stopped talking, she smiled softly and said, "Madison, your father built this company with sweat and sleepless nights too. But he always said the real success wasn't money. It was knowing you gave people hope. You're doing that." Her words stayed with me. A month later, we hosted the biggest event in company history, a global conference with clients, partners, employees from every country we now operated in. Standing on that stage, looking at thousands of faces, I realized how far we had come from the days of scandal and courtrooms. I told them, Carter Enterprises isn't just a company anymore. It's a story of survival, of family, of building something that lasts. The crowd cheered, cameras flashed, and for the first time I felt like maybe I was ready for all this after all. But life has a way of surprising you. Because the very next day, I got a letter from prison. It was from Richard. I held it for hours before opening it. His handwriting was shaky. He wrote that he was sorry, that he had been blinded by greed, anger, maybe jealousy of Dad. That prison had forced him to see what he had lost: family, respect, his own peace of mind. "I don't expect forgiveness," he wrote, "but I hope one day you can understand." I didn't know how to feel. Part of me was angry. He had nearly destroyed everything. But another part of me remembered the man who used to play guitar at family barbecues, who once carried me on his shoulders when I was little. I didn't write back, not yet. Instead, I poured my energy into the company. We launched education programs in Dad's name, giving scholarships to kids from poor neighborhoods. We built eco-friendly factories to reduce pollution. We sponsored community events, blood drives, disaster relief programs. Slowly, Carter Enterprises became known not just for products, but for purpose. One evening, scrolling through social media, I saw messages from people across the world. "Watching from India. Greetings from Canada. Your story gives me hope." It made me record another video. "If you're watching this," I said, "hit like, subscribe, and tell me your city in the comments. Because this journey isn't just mine anymore, it's ours. And we're just getting started." Still, in quiet moments, I thought about Richard's letter, about Dad, about how family can break and heal in ways business never could. But I knew the final chapter of this story wasn't written yet, because the company was safe now, successful, respected. But what about me? Who was I becoming through all this? And where would it all lead next? The months after Richard's letter were strange. The company was thriving, employees were happy, the world saw me as a strong CEO, but inside I felt like something was unfinished. Like a chapter of my life was still open, waiting for me to write the last few lines. I kept thinking about Richard, about my father, about everything that had happened since that day he died. People saw the success, the headlines, the speeches. But they didn't see the nights I lay awake wondering if I had done the right things, if I had become the kind of leader Dad wanted me to be. One evening, I was in my father's old study at home. His books were still there, his chair, even his glasses sitting on the desk like he might walk in any moment and pick them up. I opened one of his journals. He used to write in them every night. On one page, dated 2 years before he died, he had written, "Success means nothing if family falls apart. Build businesses, yes, but build bridges too." I read that line 3 times. Build bridges, not walls, bridges. The next morning, I called the prison. They told me Richard could have visitors on Thursday. I almost canceled 3 times before that day came, but something inside pushed me to go. When I walked into that visiting room, my heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Richard looked older, thinner, his hair almost all gray now. When he saw me, he froze, then slowly stood up. "Madison," he said softly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I sat down across from him. "I read your letter," I said. He nodded, eyes down. "I don't expect anything from you. I needed you to know I was sorry." I studied his face. He looked nothing like the arrogant man who once told me I was just a child. He looked human, broken. "I hated you for a long time," I admitted. "You tried to take everything Dad built. You tried to take my future." "I know," he whispered, "and I live with that every day." We talked for an hour, about Dad, about the company, about mistakes you can't undo but can learn from. When I left, I didn't forgive him completely. Not yet. But for the first time, I felt like maybe someday I could. Driving back, I thought about my father's words again, build bridges. Maybe this was the first brick in that bridge. Back at work, life moved forward fast. Our new product line was dominating the market. Media called us a miracle comeback. Universities invited me to speak about leadership and resilience. One day, Forbes magazine put my photo on the cover with the headline, "The CEO Who Refused to Break." But I knew the truth. I had broken, many times. The only difference was I kept getting back up. That summer, we held the first ever Carter Foundation Scholarship Dinner, giving full college scholarships to 50 students from underprivileged backgrounds. Standing on that stage, watching those kids smile with tears in their eyes, I realized something. This was bigger than business, bigger than money. We were changing lives, and that, more than anything, felt like victory. After the event, I went home and sat on the balcony, the city lights sparkling below. For the first time in years, I felt peace, real peace. I pulled out my phone and recorded one final video. "Hey everyone," I said, smiling into the camera. "If you've been following my story from the beginning, you know it's been a wild ride. My dad's death, the company battles, the comeback, it's all been part of this crazy journey. But here's what I've learned. Life will break you, test you, scare you. People will betray you. Others will surprise you. And sometimes the people you love will fall, but that doesn't mean they can't get back up. So whatever you're going through, remember, you are stronger than you think." I paused, took a breath, then added, "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached." That video went viral overnight. Thousands of comments poured in from around the world: New York, London, Mumbai, Sydney, Lagos, Tokyo. People said the story gave them hope, that it made them believe in second chances, in fighting back, in forgiving without forgetting. A week later, I got another letter from Richard. This time, he didn't ask for forgiveness. He just wrote, "Your father would be proud." I folded that letter carefully and put it in Dad's journal. Because I think he would be proud too. The company was strong, the family was healing, and me, I was no longer the scared girl everyone underestimated. I was Madison Carter, CEO, daughter, survivor. And this was my story.